In our film, The Deadly Decoration, we challenged the convention and filmed today about female representation. We represent a social group of feminists who wanted to do a film with an all-female cast and crew in order to make people think about how women are portrayed in film. One of the technical aspects that we practiced while doing this was learning how to shoot with the correct frame rate to end up with slow motion footage in post. We also use the techniques in Final Cut to help us with this. In order to create a sense of branding throughout our film, we elected to use the same font and color scheme. We used a cursive script font for the title of the film in the intro and for the names of the actors. We also used the same cursive script in the credits at the end and kept the theme of red and white with this as well. We wanted to create a sense of cohesiveness with our film in order to make a package. When we did our postcard, we also kept the same color scheme. However, we elected to use another type of font, not a cursive script, in order to make the postcard easily readable. A technical aspect that we practiced while shooting this was learning how to shoot in different types of light. For the scenes shown here, such as the Christmas present scene, we wanted the set to be very bright and full of light to create like a happy sense through the film. When we get to the interrogation scenes, shown in a few seconds, you'll see that it was very dark.
I'm glad you liked it.
In order to make the characters being interrogated seem like they're having internal
Okay, so basically we're all sitting around on the couches. Let's get to the point.
You can see how we chose to have more shadows on the interrogator's
basically
face,
we're all opening
while
presents
having less on
and
the
everyone
person
got
being
one except
interrogated
for
for this scene. In the very end, when we are interrogating Rebecca, who will find out to be the culprit, we have more shadows on her face because we want the viewer to realize how much of an internal conflict Rebecca is having right now. A really cool technique that we got to practice with was using the vertigo shot or the dolly shot, characterized by Alfred Hitchcock's movie Vertigo. We panned forward while zooming out in order to make the background shift while Hillary's face stayed the same in the frame. This created a sense for the viewer that Hillary had just discovered something big and her perspective is switching. Along the same lines as keeping our brand continuous and cohesive throughout the film, we asked the girls to wear clothes that were in the same color scheme that I mentioned earlier, red and white. We also had them wear Santa Claus hats in order to make sure the viewer was aware that it was during Christmas time that the Secret Santa was happening. We wanted our product to engage with the audience and be distributed as a film that would be shown at a film festival. Our film engages with the audience by having a fast-paced plot with a large diversity of shots. One of the techniques that I learned while shooting this was finding different ways to have a different shot for every piece of dialogue shown, especially during the lunch scene between detectives number 1 and 2. As far as sound goes, we wanted to make sure there was a large amount of diegetic sound that the viewer could hear, as to make sure that the film seemed realistic and not too eerie and lacking in sound. As far as software goes, we filmed our project on a Canon EOS 5D Mark III DSLR camera. We are very fortunate to have such a nice professional camera available to us. We also worked with a lot of different types of lighting in order to get the effects that we wanted. Working with the lights was really beneficial to how our film turned out. We used Final Cut Pro X to edit our film. We were privileged to have this professional software at our fingertips. It was easy to use and provided all the functions we needed for our film. Speaking of diegetic sound, when we cut to the clip shown in a few seconds, you will see that the girls start laughing in one, and then after we cut, they are continuing laughing in the other. We wanted to create this continuous feeling using the diegetic sound in the clips. We also wanted to use the diegetic sound of a bell ringing to signify that the girls had to go and eat lunch. However, we didn't have a bell in real life to use, so we had to insert the sound effect in post. We think it turned out really good. Another way we integrated technology into our project was online. To create our blogs and film website, we used WordPress. It took a lot of trial and error, but eventually we figured out how to format our blogs and website perfectly. As for uploading the film, we elected to use YouTube to present our film. YouTube's uploading system is easy to use and was perfect for what we wanted to do. Our cinematographer, Hallie, took a cool technique to this scene right here. After each piece of dialogue was said, the camera got closer to the person's face. We wanted this to begin to show the viewer how tense the situation was becoming because detective number 1 had just found out something important. We elected to show the feet of the person walking into the interrogation room before showing the viewer their face in order to create suspense. We also let the door shut completely before showing the interviewee's face, and we showed the empty chair before the interviewee sat down. We want the viewer to have a lot of suspense before realizing what is about to happen. As mentioned earlier, we elected to have more shadows on the detective's face and less on the interviewee's face until the detective accuses the interviewee. Then the shadows switched to her face, showing how internally conflicted she is. We also were very excited to shoot this part, which was going back in time to what had happened that the viewer didn't see earlier. We now show the letter of rejection that Rebecca was looking at before Hillary had asked her to enter the class, right before Rebecca had switched the names. The ending of the film is definitely my favorite part, as the viewer goes back in time to see what had happened before, but not what they had originally seen before. We see Rebecca switching the names and continuing to frame Leah. The viewer may have realized that right now we have added some non-diegetic sound background music. The song had played earlier, but once Rebecca is being accused, it starts playing again, faster and louder, showing how this scene has become so tense it has reached its point and now it is declining. And finally, we end with the end credits. We decided to keep the same theme that I mentioned earlier with the cursive script and the red background with the red and white contrast.